He's called Mr. Doodle, and he doodles his whole house, and it's pretty incredible, actually. He covers literally the entire thing in just these micro doodles. And yeah, I just thought it was fascinating when I watched it.
So is this like stop motion?
Yeah.
How long, dude, I wonder how long this would take.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's at least a year process because it's just...
Does he actually live in this house, though?
I believe so, yeah.
I feel like that'd give me like a headache if I was like looking at the walls and I see all that stuff.
Yeah, he must be a strange man.
Also, imagine if you like mess up. Like right
No, he
here.
for sure has messed up a ton, but he just knows how to like incorporate it where it doesn't look like a mistake. Because there's no way you can do that whole thing without messing up.
Dude, I feel like videos like this, like on YouTube too, like we see this and like we don't like appreciate how much time actually goes in.
Oh yeah, because it's like a 3-minute video probably.
Yeah. Same thing with like Spider-Verse, like
Yeah.
and like each frame is just a perfect piece of art, or just like movies in general. Like the amount, have you guys like read about the amount of time that goes into just like, because they get all this footage and then they have to condense it, and it's just like, it's crazy. I feel like in general with any craft, like you see like the final product and you don't like appreciate the hours and hours that go into it.
I feel like that almost goes with like any skill. It's like you watch somebody that's really good at it, and unless you've like tried to do that thing before, like playing an instrument or something, you don't realize how hard it is.
Right.
Unless you actually have experience doing it.
Well, because they just make it easy with how seamless it is. Like
Yeah.
my sister had a piano concert, and there was this one dude that had like literally a 15-minute song of just like the most absurd, just going all over. It's like, you have to think about how like committed to memory that is, and like how many like that probably took years, like just the amount of sacrifice. Yeah.
Look at this freaking house. Do you see that end shot?
Yeah, the end shot was cool. So do you suppose he just bought his whole house and painted it white first?
Yeah, I have no idea where he got all the money, but he bought a house, painted it all white, and then he just doodled the entire thing. No idea how that happened, but it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
He has a wife too, who like tolerates living in that house.
Really?
Which is also insanely impressive to me.
Dude, I think this is the cool thing about YouTube too, is like, at the end of the day, it's like, what's the point of that, dude? Like, that's just, like, there's no, like, purpose for that. There's no, if we were in, like, the Industrial Revolution, dude, when everything was, like, everyone was, like, subsistence, like, you gotta survive and make money, like, there would be no outlet for that. But because of, like, the internet today, because of, like, blogs, because of, like, YouTube, like, Twitter, like, all this stuff, TikTok, like, a bunch of, like, super creative, talented people have outlets to do that, where it wouldn't have been possible before.
True. And for you know, one of the first times in history, people can make money doing art. Like, people before were paid to like create grand buildings and sculptures, but like people can just do any kind of art they want, and if it's good and interesting, people will watch it on YouTube, and you can make a living off of that.
Well, I don't even think it's necessarily just art, though. It's like anything that you're passionate about. If there's other people that share that interest, you can potentially make money off of it.
Dude, now that we're like going into college and like thinking about careers and stuff, it's just like, that to me is like inspiring, because I don't know, like traditionally, like we've been told it's like there's go get a job, provide for yourself. There's like one path for it. But it's like the idea that there are positions like these are like, I don't know, like other just positions that you wouldn't like usually think about. It's kind of inspiring. It's like, but then it's like, how do you get to that level that you could become Mr. Doodle?
Yeah.
Like, I want to know like his backstory. Like, how do you start that? Like, what's the process that you go about that?
I mean, surely he has money from somewhere else.
Yeah, I would think.
This video got 5 million views, which is a lot. You make a decent amount of money on that. You don't make enough money off this one video to buy a house and spend a year doodling it.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well, and you don't know if if his other videos probably aren't getting that many views.
Yeah.
Or like at least compared to this video.
Dude, have you guys heard about like Mr. Beast and his whole process of like, how he'll like make a bunch of money from.
He spends all of it.
He dumps it all back into the production. Like we're talking about how much work it takes for like videos. Like this man has like a whole, like apparently some of his production crews and like everything, like all the equipment and all that goes into it is like more than like
The video.
than like indie films or like other like actual films that people produce.
Because he
It's
gets
just, like,
one shot.
like-
It's not, or it's barely scripted anyway.
Yeah.
It's probably partially scripted, but he gets one shot of this thing, and so he has to film it from tons of different angles, make sure it's right the first time.
Bro, it's crazy because you have like, if you look at his first videos, it's just like some like 13, like he literally started at like 9, just like filming like,
Minecraft.
yeah, it's so elementary and it just like snowballs into something crazy. But it's like you have that, but then you have the polar opposite where it's like Joe Rogan like started in kind of the same spot, like just like him and his buddy with the camera. They had like these like cringy like snowflake emoji cinematic stuff. And he literally has just like kind of stayed the course of like not adding really that much production, just literally talking to people. And he still ended up in like some crazy, like millions of people watch him now.
Yeah.
It's just like, there's two different approaches, I feel like.
It's crazy though if you think about the actual numbers that Mr. Beast gets, because his average view count is like 150 million.
Yeah. Absolutely nuts.
The number of people that is
150.
You
That's a
can't
lot.
even fathom.
That's
You can't fathom that.
unfathomable.
Well, yeah, Joe Rogan was saying that when people come on his show, like, can you imagine, like, okay, like, we have this conversation right now. Imagine that you know that 150 million people are going to see this, not just in the next, like, couple days, but for maybe forever, for the rest of
Yeah.
your life. People are going to see this. You're going to be able to search the internet and find this clip of you. They can criticize you.
Yeah.
They can, like, judge your looks, judge how you think about things. Like, it's just out there forever. He says that people like sometimes will just like start shaking before. It's like, yeah, dude. 'cause,
Yeah,
like,
you cannot blame him at all.
yeah.
One thing that's kind of crazy that I learned yesterday, I was on a call with my advisor at my school, and he said that when he was reading through my file, he saw that I had recorded a podcast, so he went and watched a couple episodes. I was like, what?
Whoa.
There's no way. So it's just proof that like things that you put on the internet are actually out there, and like people will watch them and judge you for them.
That's crazy.
Do you actually think you watched a couple episodes, or you
That's
watched
what
10 minutes?
He watched like a couple of segments, I'm guessing, because I'm sure he doesn't have time to spend a couple.
Yeah, you
hours
don't
on
have
each on each student.
Did he
but
like
it's
say anything about it?
Well, he just said like, "Hi, Caleb. It's great to meet you. I kind of feel like I already know you a little bit because I watched a couple episodes of your podcast."
Oh my God.
Interesting.
What did you say? You're like,
I was just blown away, and also he's like, he noticed that we'd like not uploaded for a while. He asked if it was coming back. I was like, yeah, a new episode dropping soon.
you're like, yeah, we got a couple videos backed up, but yeah,
Couple in the pipeline.
yeah.
That's cool.
You know that I think. Excuse me, but we're talking about Joe Rogan. Started out just like the camera. I mean, that's pretty much us. We got a camera over there.
Just
We
think
got
about a few years down the line.
recording on a phone microphone. Maybe we're in a we're in $1 million studio. Who knows? Who knows?
That'd be pretty excellent.
Yeah.
Dude, the cool thing about Joe Rogan too is like, and like careers is like traditionally people just think that like, oh, you study one skill and then like you specialize and then like you're a coder or you're in marketing and that's what you do. That's you. But it's like Joe Rogan, like, I don't know if you guys know much about him, but he's like into hunting. He's a UFC commentator. He's really into like martial arts. He's like the guy for
MMA.
the fighting community. He's a comic. He knows like Dave Chappelle, Tom Segura, all those guys. He's in that scene. Like all these things, like you see that with like these guys like Da Vinci and like Steve Jobs, where like they're in a bunch of different, like Steve Jobs was in like the Zen Buddhism scene, but he was also like this tech guy, and he's also like a bunch of different things. So it's like, I think the people that are successful find ways to like, I don't like they're not like limited in one specific area. If that makes sense.
In my head, I feel like that's something to do with like how you approach learning things. Because I feel like you notice that certain people, there's some people that are just good at like most things they do. And I'd like wonder like what like goes on in their brain that like makes them either better at learning things or better like retaining skills.
Well, there are also some people who just actually enjoy learning and
Yeah.
they want to be learning constantly throughout their life. And there are some people who are just content going through school to get the paycheck at the end of the day, or once they get a job. But there are people who legitimately like they're learning throughout life, and it's that passion for learning that actually is going to make you successful, I think.
I think, now that you guys bring up learning, like, some guy was actually asking, like, Joe, like, how do you do all these things? How do you find time? And he's like, apparently he has this tattoo from this guy, Miyotomo Musashi, which I think we talked about before, the guy who wrote the Book of Five Rings. He's like this swordsman who, like, never lost a battle.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's like this, I forget, I'm going to paraphrase, but it's basically like, through the effort of learning one thing, you can learn all things. So it's like Tim, I don't know if you know Tim Ferriss, but he's like this business guy. I don't know, whatever. He talks about this too, where it's like the skill of meta learning, where it's like he writes this cookbook, but there's a chapter in the cookbook that's basically about this process of meta learning, and he basically says like, you can take these principles that I talk about in this book about learning cooking and apply it to any different area of life. So I think that's one of the things that, like, in school, like, I think a lot of kids come away with this idea that learning is boring. It's the thing that Ms. Brinkhouse wants me to do to learn science. It's like, no, dude, like, you could take the skill of learning and, like, apply it to, like, things that you genuinely find interesting. And I think that's what Joe Rogan has done, and what all these other guys have done is they've found those principles of learning and they've applied it to things that they're genuinely curious about. So,
Yeah.
any comments?
Well, yeah, just another example of someone who's done that, obviously, is Elon Musk. Like,
Yeah.
he has probably 20 companies under his belt at this point, because he's constantly, like, allowing himself to learn about what's going on in the world and then what's gonna, like, be the best for the future of humanity, ideally.
Yeah.
So, like, what's the biggest problem? One of the biggest problems he sees, free speech. Okay, I'll just buy a social media platform. Or, like, we need to be a multiplanetary species. Okay, I'll start a rocket company. Or we need to start using renewable energy. Okay, I'll start an electric car company. It's just like such an incredible way to go about it.
Yeah.
Or Zuckerberg and Lex Friedman. Like, apparently Zuckerberg is big into, like, athletics
Jiu-jitsu,
now. He's
yeah.
in jiu-jitsu. He's, like, winning tournaments. And he did, like, you know what the Murph is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he did that, like, some record time. Like, he's just, like... And he was talking about it, too. He's, like... Lex was, like, asking him about it. He's like, yeah, I just feel like... I don't know, like, you just have to keep putting yourself out there and be willing to start over and reset. And I think that's, like, something that a lot of people are uncomfortable about, is, like, being a beginner, like, be willing to suck. Because that's where all, like, the people that are the Zuckerbergs and the Elons, like, they don't care about sucking. Like, they're just gonna, like, grind through it. And that's how you become good, is by exposing yourself to the suffering of being bad.
Dude, I can relate to that so much. I feel like, I mean, I can even still sometimes struggle with this, but especially when I was younger, I was like I hated being bad at things. I hated being like I was not a very, like, coachable person. Like, I didn't like to hear, like, oh, you're doing this wrong. And it's just like, you got to be willing to accept that there's, like, a lot of people that know a lot more than you do. And you just kind of have to, like, accept that you're bad and that, like, they're trying to help you. And there's things you can, like, take away from them.
Yeah, and whenever I'm trying to learn a new skill, I just have to think back to it always feels so brutal just being at the beginning and I just suck.
Yeah.
But then you think back to anything that I am actually good at. Like, in kindergarten, I was learning how to count. Like, I didn't know math in kindergarten, but it took a long time to get to, like, be decent at math or, like, or any other skill. Something that you're good at, you learn how to do it at some point. You didn't just start being good at some point. So it hurts to start at the beginning, but that's
Yeah.
where it has to happen because nobody can start.
Our Lord and Savior JP has this golden quote where he's like, he's talking about one of the things that I think harms people is comparing themselves to others when they're first starting out. And he says something like, well, and this guy Naval, this philosopher guy, they basically say the same thing. It's like other people are playing different games. Like everyone's playing their own game. We're not just playing one game, we're playing different games. Like right now, like I'm playing the social game. I was playing the school game. I'm playing the lifting game.
Yeah.
We play the spike ball game.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of different games, and everyone invests a different amount of effort in each game. And they have genetics that impact how well they do in each game. They have experience that impact how well they do in each game. So a lot of times what our mind wants to do is like in spike ball, dude, like I'll catch my mind like, oh, Joe beats me in the spike ball game. And then it'll like generalize to like, oh, you're bad at all games.
Yeah.
Because of the spike ball game. It's like,
Yeah.
no, dude, like that's one game. And
Yeah.
like even then, like Joe has different, like Joe plays tennis or Joe plays like he's good at ping pong. So it's like he's developed those skills over time maybe that lend themselves more to spike ball, whereas I developed other skills. Like it's it's not as easy, as linear, as like simple as you suck at this game, therefore maybe you're not like cut out for this game or you're not good at all games.
No, that's like such an easy trap to fall into. It's just like comparing yourself to other people because like if you look hard, like you don't even really have to look hard, but like in anything you do, it's pretty easy to see people that are better than you, and you kind of just have to like realize that they either started before you, they've spent more time than you, or maybe they're honestly just really talented at that, and you kind of just have to accept that.
Right.
Yeah, like the chances that you're ever going to be the best in the world at something are pretty much zero. So there's just always going to be someone you can look up to.
Yeah.
But I would push back on it a little bit because there is something really inspiring about seeing people that are better than you. Like there are so many communities of people that have started new skills because they see influencers, people on YouTube, their friends, whatever, doing these things and they're really good and they're like, wow, that's inspiring, I want to do that. Like David Goggins has inspired so many people to start lifting and running and working out, and so many people have been inspired to play tennis by Novak Djokovic. And it's like, even though, obviously you can't compare yourself, you're not going to have a 120 mile an hour serve on your very first attempt. And if you do, or if you think that you are, you're never going to succeed. But if you see that and you're like, wow, that's really, really awesome, I want to be like that someday, that's how people get into things. And I've started trying so many new things because I see people on YouTube or friends doing stuff that I think is awesome.
It's all about how you view it. Like one person can look at David Goggins and have hope. Like, oh man, that's possible for me. Like I can have some characteristics like that. Another person can look at that, be like, man, that's depressing. I'm never gonna get to that level. He must be different than me. It's like all about the inner monologue and how you view it. There's this book, The Inner Game of Tennis. Yeah. And he has this one idea where it's like, he's talking about tennis. He's like, if you view your backhand as a reflection of who you are, you're never going to be successful because you're attaching too much of your identity and your self-confidence to your backhand. There's going to be way too much pressure. You're never going to like be in the flow to just hit the ball. He's like, he brings it to parenting too, where it's like, if you as a parent attach your identity to everything that your kid does, you're never going to be happy either, because it's like you can't control your kid in the same way you can't always control your performance. Like you need to have some level of detachment. We talked about detachment before from your performance that allows you to develop.
You're not your failures and you're not your accomplishments.
Yeah.
You're something separate than all that.
Yeah.
But it's weird though, because you also kind of are. So it's like you do have some level of control, but you also don't. So it's like it's this push-pull.
Well, you have to care enough to work hard to like practice something, but as soon as you start to care too much, you think too much, and you're just not going to be able to perform at the same level, especially on like stuff that you can't just like brute force your way through, stuff that has like a little more finesse. Like you have to be able to like relax and actually just like let things happen instead of trying to force it.
I was reading this book actually today. It's called The Beginner's Mind, or it's something about Zen meditation, Zen Buddhism, and they were basically making the point too, where it's like when you sit down to meditate, you want to have intention and you want to have goal, and there's effort required to getting in the meditation. Like you want to focus, you want to like look at your breath, whatever. You have goals, but they say that you don't want to be attached to the outcome. You don't want to be concentrating too hard. You want to be able to get into it's you and your breath, or like you're not even there. It's just the breath. And that's where all the results come. It's not like, oh, I have to get somewhere. I have to focus really hard in order to become enlightened. It's like, no, just like there's this saying, chop wood, carry water. You guys might have heard that. It's a Zen saying. It's basically like, just get into the work. Just do the work. Don't even focus about where you're going. Just like immerse yourself in it. I feel like that's kind of the same.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what we were saying earlier with, like, if you're looking up and you're like, oh, this person's so good, like, I'm never going to be as good as them. And then you're, like, going to try to do that skill. You're going to be, like, thinking, like, oh, I suck. Like, oh, I can't do this. And that is just going to be detrimental to your performance.
Yeah. Dude, there's another thing. I think internal dialogue is so crucial because JP, again, has, like, a golden quote where it's, like, I'm going to paraphrase again because I don't remember the exact quote, but it's like, once you start viewing yourself as like someone to respect, like there's like someone, treat yourself like you would treat a friend, right? Like you start to realize like the internal monologue, like you're a dick to yourself.
Yeah.
Dude. Like, if you actually like, occasionally I'll just like, because a lot of times it happens subconsciously, but I'll catch a sentence that I'm saying to myself. I'm like, damn, like that, like you just don't need to be that like mean. And also it goes the other way where it's like, if you treat yourself as someone that you don't actually know, there's like a lot of, like you'd be surprised. Like I feel like there are a bunch of like different people inside yourself that you don't necessarily, I'm kind of talking about two different things right now, but I just feel like the internal monologue is something that we could really focus on for performance.
Well, yeah, if you want to think about like say you're someone's boss, like you've got an employee and you're like thinking about like, okay, how am I going to motivate this person to like work better, sell better, anything like that? Like you're not going to be just like a dick to them. You're going to like try to actually give like genuine like instructional advice to help them perform at their job. And I feel like you kind of have to view it the same with yourself. Like if you're just like keep telling yourself negative things like, oh, I can't do this, like that's obviously not going to help you like get anywhere. Like you have to like just take a genuine look at what you're doing and judge from that.
But at the same time, I don't know if you can give yourself advice. Like, so maybe the best way to motivate yourself is to tell yourself that if you don't do it, you're gonna be a little turd bucket idiot, you know?
Whoa.
Like when I'm running and I'm at the end and I'm really just trying to push through.
Inner David Goggins.
Yeah.
David Goggins just comes in and he's like, don't be a little bitch. I literally tell myself that sometimes. And it's just like, you know, that's what you got to do to actually push through. And I don't know, maybe a good friend would also tell you that. So maybe I'm not exactly on the...
It's all about time and place and like everything. There's a balance, right? Like in some places and sometimes like I'll like be pushing myself a ton. Like during finals, dude, where it's like, I've just been like grinding through and it's like, I've been using that form of like fear mongering, like this is what's gonna happen if you don't do this. And then it's like, all right, like maybe I can like reward myself or like, maybe I'll like, I don't know, like find a way to like be a little easier on myself because I've known that before I've been like pretty hard. It's all about like balancing it out. You want to have a little of both.
at a certain point, if you just keep being hard on yourself, it's going to lead to anxiety because you're constantly thinking about the outcome, and it's also going to lead to despair. Like, I guess I'm just never going to get this.
I think that's what a lot of like neuroses come from, is like there's like psychic like turmoil between, I think like Jung talks about this, where there's a disunity between the selves, where it's like if one side of yourself is always just like grinding on the other side, then it's like not grinding.
Okay, we get what you mean.
You know what I mean? But like then the other one like starts to feel resentment for the other one, and then it's like all your different selves are not working together. And if you're like a disunified, I don't even know if that's a word, but disunified person, then it's like you're not, then I feel like that causes issues, you know?
I just think, well, I mean, at the end of the day, there's just different circumstances, and you kind of have to analyze like what's going to be the most helpful in the moment, I guess, is where like the ground I would settle on.
Yeah. As we were talking about anxiety, like, it just brought to mind a few days, like, I don't really drink caffeine at all, but a few days ago I had like a Celsius. And it was just because I wanted something to drink. But then I noticed that for the rest of the day, I just felt so much more anxious. Like, there was nothing I had to worry about, and there was like, very few things on my plate, but it just like constantly thinking like, oh, do I have to get that done? Like,
You need some L-theanine.
what does that mean?
You need, if like for me, same thing, caffeine causes like panic almost, but like that's because it raises cortisol and noradrenaline. But it's like if you have L-theanine, which is a compound found in green tea, it will lower the cortisol back and basically like
Counteract it.
It's like peanut butter and jelly, dude. Like you have to have.
But you could also just like not drink caffeine, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
That's also an
caffeine also has a lot of benefits personally, but it's all personal.
I think the caffeine debate is so interesting because like
95% of people are caffeinated.
yeah, I have like a lot of friends that are like big caffeine, like multiple times a day, like several hundred milligrams, and I'm just like, I know, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it's just like so interesting how it has such big benefits for some people, but like me personally, like I do not feel good like when I take caffeine generally, and like I'll maybe have it once every other week, and I just like, if I need to stay up late, but just generally it's not gonna make me feel good.
Mm-hmm. That's what's interesting about everything, dude. It's like compounds, drugs, philosophies, ideas, like ethics, or not ethics maybe, but like everything is so general. I mean, you can't generalize for people because everyone's so different. It's all about finding like what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, I don't know, like some like religions generalize, or like doctors generalize, but it's like I almost feel like in a lot of circumstances you have to find like personalized, like different people are gonna have different things at work.
Well, it's so interesting because like it's all the same compounds, but it has such different impacts on people, and like I think on the surface we all think we're like really different from each other, but this was like something we learned in anthro was like the whole world population now. Like there was a point like 70,000 years ago or something where the whole world population was like 600 people.
Yeah.
So like we all come from like those 600 people. So like compared to other species like apes, chimps, like gorillas, we're like so much more similar to each other than them. Yet we still have these, like generic compounds like caffeine or whatever, and it has such different impacts on like how it makes us like think and feel.
It's weird because like we're all the same, but we're also like so different.
Yeah.
But there are like crucial things like family, like friendship, like exercise. Like these things like exercise, dude, there's not a single person that like exercise doesn't help.
Yeah.
Like that's like you need that. Mm-hmm. But then it's like there are other things where it's like peanuts, dude. Like one dude.
Yeah.
Peanuts are great, dude. Like it's like their favorite thing, and it's like healthy and minerals, whatever. The other person, they could die from it, so it's just like
yeah, that's crazy. Such a strange dichotomy.
I think we gotta wrap this up, dude.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah,
we're wrapping
finish
this one up for the half hour. All right.